Spencer, got a bit of information overnight about Fury Joshua. I mean, everybody's probably sick to the back teeth of this. When is this going to be announced? When is this fight going to be announced? Shall I tell you what we know at this end, Spencer?
Yeah, please. Yeah, it's yeah, I'm interested to know, Jim.
Okay, overnight, this is what I heard, Spencer, that the fight itself has not been signed yet by the fighters. It's not all signed up yet, but that should happen in the next few days. But they will then spend some time negotiating what they call this site fee. But that's not going to be agreed until potentially later this year, maybe November. So we're looking at Fury Joshua at the tail end of the year, Spencer.
Yeah, so I've heard, Jim, something slightly different. You know, I've heard that, the contracts haven't been signed yet.
Right, right.
Anthony Joshua, 258 management are ready to sign. They're ready to go. I think that there's complications on Tyson Fury's side because obviously we've got Bob Arum, Frank Warren, Tyson Fury, etc. So they've all got to agree and sign things. But I think that we're very close to this getting signed. And I believe the fight will still happen possibly late June, early July. That's what I'm hearing still. I've not heard that it's going to be pushed back. I did hear rumours that it would be pushed back that, you know, to the back end of the year.
Well,
but I'm now hearing that it could still happen as early as late June, early July.
You have to think, Simon, the reason the information I've got is it's going to be late November. There's going to be November time. It's because the site fee is so important, and what they actually end up paying for it.
Sure.
So that is something that doesn't get negotiated overnight. And of course, in the times in which we are still living with COVID,
sure.
And of course, if you are talking about Saudi and Ramadan, it is pushback.
That's what we discussed a couple of weeks ago, didn't we? We spoke about the fact that there's a challenge here because obviously the COVID landscape changes the direction of travel for everybody, irrespective of where you are in the world. If you're going to try and leverage this enormous site fee, then it has to work, irrespective of whether these people have more money than God. They still want to have some sort of commercial viability behind it, and being able to maximise the opportunity and put people inside the environment is going to be part and parcel of the equation. And I just feel that to be able to get the timelines that we want, it's becoming challenging to do this. It surprises me that it's taking so long to drill down on a site fee. They know what they want. I mean, I'm assuming it's somewhat like a film. You get the talent, you sign it to the project, then you greenlight the project. And the project in this instance is the location.
Well, I mean, the site is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the complications here are that there's a number of countries that obviously want to pay big money to host this fight. They recognise that, you know, it's the biggest fight of modern times, and they want to. There's a number of countries still in the running. We've heard about Saudi Arabia. You know, there's another few countries, Singapore, China. Eddie Hearn's mentioned, even America and Britain still in the running. So, listen, if the fight was going to go ahead in summertime, then Britain would be ruled out. I think that America would be ruled out as well, and we would see it somewhere in the Middle East. But I think that they've got to get these contracts signed sooner rather than later for that to happen. And there's a whole load of other complications here as well, because, you know, we've got this WBO situation with Alexander Usyk, who's waiting to fight Joe Joyce in an interim title. They can't announce that until this fight's been announced. But now we've seen just recently that Usyk's team are getting frustrated because of that. And they're putting pressure now on the WBO saying, well, let's have our mandatory shot. And if this fight then takes place in November, Anthony Joshua will be committed to fighting Alexander Usyk first, before that fight happens for the
they are morally right, though,
title.
aren't they, Spence? I mean, there's always this conflict when you hold all the belts that at some point you're going to breach the covenant of one belt, aren't you? Because you're going to have a mandatory against a WBC or a mandatory against an IBF, and in this instance, the mandatory. And Usyk is right, and what Usyk is doing is probably using his commercial leverage here to say, I want a bit more money out of you guys to step aside, because it's he that's being paid to step aside from what he is entitled to, which is a tilt of the WBO, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the frustration, Simon, from Usyk's team is that they've decided to step aside for whatever deal
and look at the timelines, and they're not signing this fight.
And he can't obligate this fight with Joe Joyce for the interim title until Anthony Joshua
signs his
and
fight.
Tyson Fury is made. So they said they've been waiting now 2 months, still nothing's happened.
And it's right, isn't it?
And I think there's a lot of frustration surrounding this fight being made.
I tell you
right,
what,
absolutely.
what we do know is that Frank Warren's going to join us the other side of the upcoming break. I can a hypothetical one for you, Spencer, and a couple of people are asking it in the Twitter feed in front of me. If Fury Joshua is pushed back to later this year, and say it is November, who does it favour more?
Well, I think it definitely favours Anthony Joshua because he's been the more active of the two. You know, and look, ring rust plays a big part in boxers' lives when they've been out of the ring for too long. Anthony Joshua, we saw beat Kubrat Pulev in December, so he's been active. Tyson Fury's had this frustration of the Deontay. Yeah, he had the frustration of the Deontay Wilder trilogy that was meant to happen, didn't happen. That was meant to happen by December. So he's been out a long time now. And if we're talking about November, we're talking like sort of the best part of 2 years.
Yes, right.
And that is not proper preparation for a fight of this magnitude, someone going into a fight of this magnitude. So I think it would favour Anthony Joshua, but I also think, guys, that if the fight is pushed back to November, Tyson Fury will probably have to have a warm-up fight. Anthony Joshua might have to step up and fight Alexander Usyk for that mandatory WBO to keep that WBO title there. So there's a whole load of complications if this fight doesn't get signed soon.